Today, I want us all to think about the power of celebrating aspects of ourselves which are commonly seen as undesirable. Essentially, I want us to explore the magnitude and power of self-pride as an act of resistance. For an extensive period of my life, my conception and notion of pride were driven by the limits imposed upon me by the big, bad wolf we all know as society. I grew up believing that there were things worth embracing and others appropriately shamed, which in turn shaped what I chose to celebrate or repress about myself. Though my struggle with pride is apparent in many areas of my life, it has been most significant in my battle with being a young, black woman. Brought up in a country where colorism, the preferential or prejudicial treatment of same-race people based solely on their skin color, and growing up in a society which shames and degrades anything or anyone outside of what we know as the so-called norms, made me reject, deny, and disregard all my innate physical attributes, which made me feel as though I was not meeting up to the ludicrous societal expectations imposed upon me. Basically, I learned that dark skin was bad, light skin was good. My exposure to colorism began in my childhood. At the age of 8 or 9, I had grasped that in my environment, fairer skin, straighter hair, and lighter eyes were the epitome of beauty. In addition, it was very apparent that those who fit that profile were treated with higher regard than, say, someone with darker skin or kinkier hair. Standing before you today as a young adult, I must admit that that reality is harsh to swallow, and that racial complex can be tremendously difficult to overcome. I explicitly remember the day one of my relatives came home from school and relayed a story in which she stated that the kids in her class told her that her darkness was the result of her mother's sexual encounter with a gorilla. Comments as gruesome as these at the time made me feel relieved that I was in some way given a free pass. My caramel complexion saved me from similar taunts and mockery, but it did not save me from desiring to be lighter. And from there, a sense of shame and discomfort about my appearance was born. I saw my thick, coiled curly hair and skin tone as restrictions which would never allow for me to be seen as beautiful or acceptable enough. Therefore, I begged my mother for a perm, and I refused to play out in the sun for too long as I feared becoming darker. This was my attempt at trying to get rid of my undesirable traits. As if my inferiority complex was not deeply rooted enough, the internet and international media outlets' overexposure of the Caucasian woman as being the ideal woman reinforced my insecurities. As a result, when I was told that you're so pretty for a black girl, or that my hair was so much better than a typical black girl's, my heart exploded with joy and a smile spread from ear to ear. Even though these compliments, if we can even call them that, were backhanded and I was a victim of passive racism, I was all too happy to conform to it and therefore reinforce it. I am no longer that person, however, and you're probably wondering how I got here. I watched my 3-year-old cousin compared to other cousins. She believed that one was more attractive than the other, and when asked why, she stated that it was because one's skin tone was more yellow. I imagined my cousin avoiding the sun when her days should be spent playing in it, and avoiding swimming because she had just permed the life out of her kinks and curls I saw myself in that little girl, and through her, I saw how pervasive and restrictive the mentality was. And at that moment, I realized that I did not want for my cousin to grow up as I had, measuring the density of her melanin or the bounciness of her curls. Instead, I wanted more than anything for my cousin to grow without having to question the beauty of her complexion or curls. And I realized that if I wanted her to do so, I had to start with myself. Though my journey may not resemble yours, we are all confined to rigorous regulations within our society based on race, sex, and class. The restrictions you encounter on a daily basis have probably subjected you to moments in which you have judged or suppressed aspects of yourselves because you have deemed them as undesirable. And let's be honest, you have probably judged others or felt a sense of superiority within yourself as a result to these standards. But let me reassure you that it is not because you are a bad person, and it is not because we are bad people. It is rather because this pervasive mentality has been ingrained in us. And so my question to you is, what do you plan to do about it? And before I allow for you to formulate your response, I want you to consider this one simple truth. If we, as a majority, learn to embrace the aspects of ourselves deemed as unacceptable, it will be the start of a powerful new dominant ideology. And that, ladies and gentlemen, in itself is a revolutionary act. And so with this knowledge, I ask you again, what do you plan to do about it? Thank you.